Yeah, so I guess one of the things I've been thinking about is a whole set of different beliefs and ideas that all conspire together, and they have to do with the way that people think about individuals, the way that people think about knowledge, the way that sort of popular psychology and popular sociology, or even the social sciences writ large, they've and again in their popular sense, they've created this kind of detached posture of observing oneself and trying to understand oneself through, I guess, normative comparative data rather than trying to understand oneself through a praxis in growth and an owning of one's own development and one's growth. It's it's as if people have relinquished trying to grow themselves or setting themselves on a course of possible radical growth and development, and instead people have kind of adopted this, well, look, this is how people are, and they'll do this kind of descriptive, they're going to try to describe people as if those descriptions don't then become part of the self-awareness that people have or the self-understanding that people have, or as if people don't have motivations for understanding themselves in certain ways. And, I guess part of it just has to do with, sometimes the difference between predicting one's behavior and making a promise about one's behavior. I mean, promises and predictions are very different kinds of speech acts. And, there's nothing wrong with trying to predict things about the world, and it may even be strategic to sometimes predict one's own behavior. But if one never deals in promises, if one never deals in those kinds of communicative acts which require a person's conscious choice and a person's deliberation over possible relations and possible futures and a trying to navigate through time, if instead of that it's all just I'm an object that sort of maintains itself or can't affect itself, but sort of like a ping pong ball on water, just subject to external forces that's going to do what it does independently of how it understands itself, or even how it tries to change itself by understanding itself in certain ways. It just seems so problematic. And I thought one of the ways to get at this is to talk just really briefly about, again, I'm back to the same old saw here, of part of my preference for books rather than video and for television. TV culture, just in general, it has this idea of a person is already done and just wants to pander to them. The television has like a metaphysics, and the metaphysics is relax, you're already done, be pandered to. Here, information is this stuff that can be sent to you. And even YouTube or educational kind of programming, it's starting to be made over in the image of this kind of pop psychology and the televisual rather than the personal growth model that goes along with book culture. I mean, I think book culture is you confront these books that were written before you were born. They're this echo of history. You have to struggle and you have to face your own incompetencies, and you can easily accuse the author of being unclear or of not using a language that's easily accessible. But there's another sense which, well, what are you going to do? The authors wrote this hundreds of years ago. Here are the texts, and to what extent can one see it as a capacity, a possible place for growing capacities rather than getting information from it? See, I think once people think that they're a thing and that they're done and that all they need is more information, the situation has become hopeless. That people are missing what's really supposed to be going on. That it's not just about a person, quotes, being done and then having more or less information and being more informed or less informed. It has to do with the growth in the capacities of that individual, those capacities for reflection, for deliberation, for conscious choice. I mean, I think, when you're going through college, you're not just supposed to be acquiring information in your field. Now, that's important, and you're supposed to remember the various facts and the various theories and the things within one's field, but you're supposed to be growing in your capacity to express, in your capacity to comprehend, in your capacity to do various forms of calculation, in your capacity to reason, to draw inferences, to set up various forms of argument, and then show how the evidence follows, from the various claims and the subpoints. Once you get those kinds of capacities, that's sort of what you're after, and that's what you're supposed to be growing, not any of the particular information that's there. And I thought, and again, I think this is why video is so insidious, because video tries to make it the sender's responsibility, or it invites quick, easy, economical, just blast of information that, a person can, I don't know, find something online and get information in a quick, accessible way, but that may be its own obstacle. That is, the obstacle being the person never sees their own shortcomings in capacities. They never see that their inability to read a text is a problem with them or a deficiency with them, rather than some shortcoming in the author. Okay, so here's an entry from Kierkegaard's Journals and Papers, and it's his entry under communication. And he makes this distinction between communication of knowledge and communication of capability. And he's talking a lot about indirect communication. And he says, communication of capability is done indirectly and remains without an object. And he says, and this is what he's trying to clarify this. He says, we can try to pound knowledge into students, but we must try to pound capability out of them. And part of his point here is that, when you watch a video, I think sometimes on the video, if you're not understanding a person, you may just stop the video and go on to a different video and go, the person's an idiot, I don't know what the hell they're talking about. But with a text, part of the skill is to learn how to go on despite not getting it at first sentence or even at first couple of paragraphs, but to proceed anyway. And his point is that no matter how unready you're going to begin with some authors, you need to begin anyway. That is, there are going to be lots and lots of authors that you're never ever ready to begin reading. The illusion is that you're going to wait until you're ready and then you're really going to be able to begin. That never happens. I mean, some authors, the only way to begin being ready is to have already begun. That is, you gain your readiness through the endeavor. So he says, genuine communication and instruction is training or upbringing. Confusion arises when the upbringer, instead of upbringing, teaches as if he were imparting knowledge. The rule is to do it as well as one can at every moment, and then again to do it as well as one can at the next moment, and so on, in order continually to get to know it better and better. If, on the other hand, the upbringing is communicated as knowledge, one never receives an upbringing, but is always getting merely something to know. The rule for communication of capability is begin immediately to do it. If the learner says, I can't, the teacher answers, nonsense. Do it as well as you can. With that, the instruction begins. Its end result is to be able. It is not knowledge which is communicated. Okay, thanks.